Hello folks, a very quick video here, just a very quick update, and I've only got three main news stories and they won't take long to go through. So we have reports of 5090s and 5090Ds getting bricked. Nothing too much to get worried about at this stage. The numbers are small, it's mostly confined to Asia, but I think it's definitely worth keeping an eye on, and we'll see where it goes. We do have past experience with issues to do with the 4090 and its connector cable. There's the 13th and 14th gen Intel chips and voltage regulation issues, degradation issues that are still not 100% resolved. And there were user error issues with installing 9800 X3Ds. So we do get all these stories. Sometimes they amount to nothing really other than user error, and sometimes they end up being something more fundamental. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. We do have reports of colourful and manly cards being bricked for various reasons. There's a bit of speculation on a videocards.com article. There is an acknowledgement from Manly. Okay, they don't really sell into the US or European markets, but they have identified there's an issue that they're looking at. They've only said it's one graphics card, but I will link to the article down below in the description. You can take a look at it. I've only highlighted two examples here. There are actually more, including a 5090 Founders Edition card. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I don't want to sensationalize it, because it's only a handful of cases. There's always things like this at launch. There's user error and so on, so I wouldn't pay a massive amount of attention to it, but certainly worth keeping an eye on as time goes on. I'm sure Gamers Nexus will try and get their hands maybe on a card that's failed and see if they can find out anything more about it. But anyway, let's move on to the next story. And not much of a story here. I'm going to get onto my own personal experience with stock and get the latest information about what's happening with stock at the moment, especially with the Chinese New Year being a major issue with supply, and bringing into question, why would NVIDIA try to launch now with such disastrous numbers? A paper launch of the 5090, very limited stock of the 5080. Why would they do it around Chinese New Year when everything is going to sell out and they have no opportunity to respond? Okay, so, but before that, before we get there, this isn't that much of a story, but I just thought it was interesting that you can get 95% of the performance of a 5090 with just 3 8-pin PCI cables plugged in. So each 5090 is going to come with an adapter. So it's going to be a 16 to 4 8-pin cable adapter. And it so happens that if you only plug 3 of them in, or if you see on the right hand side of the screen here, you'll see that there's a 3-to-1 adapter, the kind you'll find with a 5080, for example, or even a 4080 Super. If you used one of those, or if you plugged in 3 of a 4-way adapter, that you're still going to get 95% of the performance. There's 150 watts per cable here, per input, and add them up and you get your 450 watts. Obviously 575 watts is the notional limit of a 5090. It can be pushed a bit more by certain partner models, that OC models and so on. But I thought it was very interesting that you don't necessarily have to undervolt, you don't have to power limit, pull sliders down or whatever. You could actually just plug out one of the adapter cable, or one of the cables going into the adapter, and you've immediately got a power reduction, but you're still getting 95%. So it's like 450 watts seems to be around a kind of a sweet spot, where if you look at this ComputerBase chart here, and again this will be linked to, you'll see that 400, 450, and then 575. And you'll see that for 400 watts, go up another 50, you're getting another 5%, but you go up another 125% and you're only getting another 5% on top of that. So if you want to manage power, if you want a longevity for your card, keep the cooling down, whatever reason, you can still get 95% of the performance. and still be 20% better than a 4090. Okay, it's not going to affect too many people, but I just thought that was interesting to note. And yeah, worth looking at that article. You can translate it into English if German isn't your first language. But that brings me on to the main story, and that's the multiple reports we're seeing of long delays of 50 series stock. A lot of this has to do with the Chinese New Year, but you can't blame it on a holiday. I mean, you can certainly blame NVIDIA for deciding that now is the time to launch. I mean, why now? Why just on the Chinese New Year? Why would you do it now when if something goes wrong, you can't respond? If you sell out straight away, people are going to be frustrated for weeks. Okay, it just makes no sense whatsoever. And it kind of points to maybe one of the reasons why AMD have waited a bit until March, and until late February to release the review samples and so on, or get the reviews out. So a few sources here, including one from myself. I'm one of the sources because I have personal experience of this. So if you look at Overclockers UK, one of the maybe two main suppliers in the UK, along with Scan, and we're seeing, and I have a concern here. I have a concern that there are people like me out there who've, in good conscience and in good faith, ordered what they believed was in stock and authorised payments for £1,200, £1,400, €1,600, or dollars, or whatever the amount is, but it's a lot of money, authorising a lot of money for something you believe is in stock, but isn't actually in stock. That whatever way the front end and back end systems have worked, they're either out of sync or just not good enough. And orders have gone in, the amount of stock has been depleted instantly, and yet orders have kept coming in from people who saw a status on the product page that said in stock and ready for shipment. It's exactly what I saw. We'll come on to my situation in a second. We'll deal with a couple of sources that are on Twitter and on another Dutch forum. And if we look at this one here on Twitter from Overclockers, there are 5090s and 5080s sold out, and pre-orders are now ceased. You can't pre-order at this stage because they have such a backlog to get through. They talk about the incredibly high demand as if it was a shock to them, as if they could never have anticipated it, as if they could never put countermeasures in place to make sure their systems don't crash or incorrectly sell things that have just gone out of stock. So it's not 100% clear from this language, but I get the sense that what's happened here is similar to my situation, where orders have been placed, the stock is very quickly depleted, but the orders have kept coming in just because there was such a rush at that time. And people who thought they were buying something in stock have now instead been put onto a pre-order list. That concerns me, because once you believe you've ordered something, you're not looking anywhere else. You stop looking. And it's not just that day or that hour. You stop looking for good until you hear otherwise. Okay, so that's my concern with that. This Dutch insider, someone in the supply chain who has knowledge of different suppliers, is talking about batches. So they're coming from Asia in batches. And this, again, it's concerning because batch one could be tiny. Things are just ramping up. The chips have to be manufactured. They have to be sent to the partners to assemble their boards and their cards. And then they have to be shipped via shipping containers. You can't put millions of graphics cards on planes. I mean, that's just not the way it works. These things will go by container ships, so that's going to take days. It takes 15 days, for example, to get from Shanghai to the the west coast of the US. 15 days. That's what that shipping lane takes. So that's a concern if things don't ramp up very quickly. You're looking at very small initial releases before maybe batch 3 in March. And it's the same with the Founders Edition, nothing until March. So I think it's at least until March before we see any significant stock. And I think the previous batches are just going to satisfy pre-orders. So I don't think realistically there's going to be anything on shelves available until at least March. And even then, you know, what are your chances? So I'm not too positive on that. Getting onto my situation, just to go through it quickly before I finish up. If I just move myself up here a little bit, this is to do with my order from Computer Universe, also the same company as Cyberport. I think Cyberport are a kind of a retail shop that you can walk into on the street. Computer Universe is an online shop based in Germany. And I ordered online, and if I go to the specific order here that I placed, I'll show you exactly what it looks like. So let me zoom in here. Okay, so let me move over here a bit. The status that I saw on the website is the same as this. It said it was in stock and ready for immediate shipment. It was one of 2 cards that were available to me. One had like a water block, and you plug the separate water block into a PCI slot. It didn't appeal to me to do that. The only other option I had was the ROG Astral, which seems to have been one that had some stock, which again, that doesn't surprise me. Why wouldn't ASUS lead with their most expensive product? Why wouldn't they have stock for that and less stock for their tough models or whatever else, their prime models and so on? Why wouldn't they have most of their stock put into the most expensive ROG Astral, the most sought after card for those who can afford it? But, you know, I believed, okay, I'm going to place the order. It'll probably ship the next day and I'll have it within a week. Okay, I was very optimistic of that. You know, I was happy enough despite the price. Price was okay. That's the proper retail price. There was no price gouging going on. But this is the problem. This is the full email I received today, this morning. I'm doing a machine translation from German to English. Dear customers, okay, let me scroll over here a little bit. So, as a result of your order for a model variant of 5080 or 5090 from one of our brands, we would like to inform you about the availability status. At the release of the new NVIDIA series, an enormously large request was already expected in advance. Of course it was, okay? We knew that. But this was clearly exceeded. How could you exceed something that was already expected to be absolutely enormous, okay? You should have your systems ready to, you know, account for this. I mean, okay. I suppose there's always the exception, but you know, there was a run on the stock and something's gone wrong. For system-related reasons, okay, in other words, our system's crapped out. There was therefore a lot of orders in the few minutes in which the articles could be ordered, which could not be covered by the existing stock. In other words, they sold more than they had. When I bought it, I thought I was buying something in stock because that's what it said. It said it was still in stock and ready to ship. But when I placed my order, obviously a lot of other people had gotten in before me. And who knows how many? There could be hundreds. I'm not being told you're number 400 in the queue. And we're expecting 500 in February, by the end of February. I'm not getting any information like that. Completely in the dark. So the items were removed from the web shop before this quantity was reached. Now, I don't know what that means. It could be a translation issue. It sounds like before they could run out of stock, it was removed from this web shop, but obviously that did not happen. We would like to ask your understanding for this. Okay, That's nice of them to ask my understanding. The existing stock of the model you ordered has been completely allocated to incoming orders, but obviously not mine. If you receive this, then it means that I'm not one of the lucky ones, in inverted commas, lucky. Okay, maybe I'm now lucky that I didn't immediately get it. Due to cancellations, for example, if people don't pay, if their payment doesn't go through or whatever, then obviously they lose their card and it goes to the next person in the queue. But again, no information about where in the queue I am, so I'm completely in the dark. It gives the reasons as being Chinese New Year, things will have to ramp up, the chips will have to go out, the cards will have to be put together, then it'll have to be shipped, and who knows how long that will take in whatever container ship or ships. There will be, of course, custom clearance. Will there be tariffs in the US? Who knows? And then finally they get the graphics card. And they expect to not receive anything within the next 3 weeks. Okay? And that's just to clear a backlog. And I'm in the backlog. But there's nothing here that they're going to clear the backlog. It could go on for weeks beyond that. I've got no information. And after that, we will gradually, I note, receive card variants in smaller quantities. Okay, small quantities. So in other words, they have no knowledge too far into the future about what they're going to get. They anticipate small amounts. And then, of course, it'll be probably allocated on a kind of a first-come, first-served basis. And unfortunately, we cannot give a more precise date for your specific orders at the moment. Now, maybe they just don't have the information. That's fair enough. If they don't, what can they do about that? And they're asking for patience. They're not mentioning, you can cancel your order or anything, which of course I can. There's no feature when you log in to actually cancel it. I'd probably have to just send them an email. I have sent them an email saying, can you tell me, where in the queue I am or whatever, is there any kind of anticipation about when I might actually get it or anything like that? I don't think I'll get an answer. But I just said in the email, my inclination at the moment is to just cancel the order. So I haven't asked them to do that, but that's the way I'm headed at the moment, is to cancel it, get that €16 back. I mean, it's a pending payment in my account. It hasn't actually officially gone through, but at the same time, you don't like to see a pending payment for over €1,600 in your account either. So if I cancel that, then I'll take some of that money and spend it on something else for this channel. Some nice bit of equipment, and maybe save the rest or put it towards a holiday or something. I'll put it to better use maybe than a 5080 when I've already got a 4080 Super, for God's sake. What am I doing getting a 5080 when I've got that in one machine, my main entertainment machine, and then I've got an office computer here with a 13700K CPU and a 4070 Ti. I mean, what more do I need than that, really? So I suppose, like a lot of people, I just got caught up. I want a 5080, I want it for the channel, I want to show cool content where I overclock it and do maybe some AI stuff or neural rendering or whatever, but I'm prepared to wait now at this stage. We'll see what happens in the future. Maybe I'll get a Ti. I don't think so. All right, what can you do? You can't really do anything. I did get a very good deal on that 4080 Super. I knew it. I just knew it. I knew when I was browsing around, I had a feeling that this whole launch was going to be a mess, that there's going to be way more demand than supply, and that the 4080 Supers, while they were there, they were going to be gone very quickly. Because when the 5080s sell out and there's no prospect of getting one, what are people going to do? If they have a need for 4K gaming, and they're on a 20 series card, let's say, if they spot a 4080 Super for a half-decent price, they're just going to get that, knowing they're maybe losing 10% performance versus a 5080. So I think it turned out to be a good call. I don't know, let me know in the comments, do you think I'm making a good call by cancelling the 5080? Did I make a good call getting the 4080 Super? Was I mad in the first place to even think about a 5080? It would be great to hear your comments, okay? And it'd be great, of course, if you subscribed, click the bell and all that kind of stuff. It'd be fantastic. But definitely the comments and the likes and so on, because because I love to see that engagement down below. It's been really, really fun over the last couple of weeks since I started the channel, and the channel's going along nicely. I'm quite happy with it. Obviously, I'd like more subscriptions to move towards monetization, but there's a very steady trajectory there. I'm very happy with how things are going. Anyway, that's it. I'm not sure how useful that information is to you, but I think for me, this kind of draws a line under the whole 5080 and 5090 launch at this stage. I'm absolutely sick of the whole thing. I'm just going to move on now and look at some nice new content. I've got gaming on Bazite, Linux gaming, and comparing Bazite to Windows 11. I'm seeing some interesting stuff there already. I've played The Last of Us Part 1, and I've noticed very, very similar performance between Bazite and Windows 11, so I'm going to do a lot more testing there. I'm also going to test NVIDIA versus AMD on Linux, because I believe AMD are slightly better supported in terms of the drivers, but I'm going to put that to the test. That's just what I've read on the internet. That may not turn out to be the case. I'm also going to look at things like DeepSeek on a 4080 Super. I was going to look at it on a 5080, but I can still do it on a 4080 Super. It'll just maybe not be quite as fast, but it'll still do the same job as it could in a 5080. So anyway, that's it. That is it. I'll see you in the next video. All the best. Bye bye.